already know how hard it can be to carve out time to write when you have a full-time job and other responsibilities. But when you add in the common traits of neurodivergent, ADHD, and autistic writers like us, such as getting stuck in time blindness, paralysis, executive dysfunction, fluctuating energy, and a whole bunch of other stuff, starting and especially finishing your book seems to become impossible. But it doesn't have to be. In this video, we're going to go over the right strategies that work with your unique brain, not against it.
So who am I? I'm Devin Blake, a neurodivergent published author, book coach, and former ghostwriter of over 200 books. You can check me out at devinblake.com. And I'm going to share with you my experiences of the best ways to write books, even when you're ADHD and autistic like me and work a full-time job. Because the modern world makes it easier than ever for us to achieve our author dreams. And I have a free gift for you. Be sure to check it out in the description below. It's going to make writing go so much faster and easier and give you the clarity you need.
We'll start by embracing the ebb and flow of your energy. It's common for energy levels to fluctuate dramatically throughout the day, especially based on what you have going on in your life. Instead of forcing yourself to write at a set time, pay attention to when you naturally feel focused or more creative. These windows might be unpredictable, but they are valuable. When you notice an energy spike, even if it's late at night or first thing in the morning, try to capture that moment for writing. It's about riding the wave of your brain's natural rhythms rather than trying to impose a schedule on it that doesn't fit. I find the best way to do this is to buy a dated planner and then just record the times when I feel best. I don't use the planner for to-dos or for schedules or for anything like that. It's just for record keeping. And I use a dated one because I rarely know what day it is. So it's like me actually dating this planner myself is not going to happen. But for example, if your creativity sparks at odd hours, like when everyone else is asleep, don't fight it. Use those quiet, undisturbed moments to your advantage. You might not be able to follow a traditional 9-to-5 writing routine, and that's okay. Your most productive time might be at 3 a.m., and that's perfectly valid. The key is to tune into your own rhythms and capitalize on these moments when your brain is ready to write. Now, if you struggle with task paralysis, where the idea of starting something feels impossible, consider using body doubling, a technique where you work alongside someone else, either in person or virtually. The presence of another person, even if they're doing their own thing, can create just enough external pressure to help you get started. This technique is powerful because it helps break through the inertia that often comes with executive dysfunction. You're not alone in this. There are entire communities and online groups dedicated to body doubling sessions where people just connect to work in each other's virtual presence. Body doubling can be as simple as having a friend on a video call while you both work on separate projects. The act of having someone with you can make starting and sticking to your writing sessions so much easier. It's not about them pushing you. It's about the quiet accountability that their presence provides. And don't be afraid to seek out these communities. There's a growing network of neurodivergent writers who understand exactly what you're going through and who are ready to support you in real time. And if all else fails and you can't find anyone to be available at the same time as you are, there's a company called FocusMate where you can be paired with someone live for a body doubling session. Since they have people from around the world, you're guaranteed to find someone who wants to body double with you at any time, day or night, even if that person is all the way on the other side of the world. Another technique that can work wonders is leveraging your hyperfocus. If you've experienced these magical moments where you're so absorbed in your writing that you can lose track of time, then you've encountered hyperfocus. This state is common for people like us where you become intensely immersed in a task. And neurotypicals usually can't do it. And while it can be unpredictable when it strikes, it is incredibly powerful. But let's face it, hyperfocus doesn't always come easily. Setting up a low distraction environment can help guide your hyperfocus towards writing. This might mean shutting off unnecessary notifications, clearing your space of clutter, or setting up sensory triggers that encourage focus. Some people find that specific music or particular scent or dim lighting helps them enter a state of deep concentration. Experiment with what works for you and try to recreate those conditions when you want to write. Remember, it's okay if your writing happens in bursts rather than inconsistent sessions. Hyperfocus doesn't follow a schedule, but when it hits, it can result in massive productivity in a short amount of time. Instead of striving for steady output every day, embrace the creative bursts when they come and ride that wave as far as it takes you. Now, what happens when you can't get into that flow? Let's talk about rituals. Rituals are different from routines and habits because they aren't about strict schedules. Instead, they create a mental shift that helps signal your brain that it's time to write.
I hope you're enjoying the video so far and that you've gotten some aha moments. If so, remember to like to see more content like this.
When I first encountered the concept of a ritual, it was in art school, because I had a teacher start every class with a ritual she called invoking the muse, which was kind of like a prayer to the muse. Now, whether or not you believe in an actual physical muse doesn't matter. It was the ritual, not the muse itself, that helped get students in the right mindset to create artwork and participate in the class. So, do you have to invoke a muse? Well, if you think it'll help, sure, but that's not the only kind of ritual out there. Maybe your ritual is a special drink that you only have when you sit down to write. Or maybe it's a playlist that immediately transports you to your creative zone. You can also use a comfort movie for this. I use a movie for this. Or you can light a particular candle every time you sit down to write. The scent and act of lighting it can become a signal to your brain that it's time to shift gears. Another idea is to have a specific chair or favorite hoodie that you wear during your writing sessions. Rituals like this are simple but effective ways to ease into the writing mode without forcing it. The idea is to develop cues that tell your brain it's writing time. And here's another important strategy to carve out time for your writing. Reducing decision fatigue. Have you ever sat down to write and spent more time deciding what to write than actually writing? Happens to all of us. But that's where decision fatigue comes in. Your brain can only handle so many decisions in a day before it starts to slow down and resist making more choices. One way to avoid this is to have a grab bag of ideas already ready. Create a list of prompts, scenes, or ideas for your story ahead of time. This way, when you sit down to write, you're not starting from scratch. You can simply pick something from your list and dive in. It's like having a toolbox filled with creative possibilities. On days when you feel foggy or unfocused, having these pre-selected options can cut through the haze and get you moving. Some writers even like to color code their grab bags based on their mood. For example, if you're in a lighthearted mood, you can pull out a fun, playful scene. If you're feeling more introspective, you might work on a deeper, more emotional part of your story. You can also use GPT chat to help with this, instead of having an actual physical grab bag. For example, give it your scene ideas or ask it to write it. It likely won't be the greatest writing you've ever seen, but it's definitely going to spark some ideas for a story. It might even take a great direction that you've never thought of. I've had GPT chat do that to me several times. Both the online and the offline approach gives you flexibility while reducing the mental load of deciding on what to write with your limited time. And speaking of mental load, outlining your book in advance is a huge help for any writer who is neurodivergent like us. Outlining isn't about limiting creativity. It's about creating a roadmap that frees you from the anxiety of not knowing of what comes next. When you have a clear outline, you can skip around to different parts of your books, to your favorite parts of the book, without getting lost. It also means that when hyperfocus strikes, you can use that intense energy to make real progress instead of wasting time figuring out where to go. Another effective strategy is called pre-commitment. If you find it hard to motivate yourself to start writing, commit to writing with someone else. It could be a friend, a fellow writer, or even a virtual community. There's a lot of Write With Me sessions right here on YouTube. Knowing that someone else is expecting you to show up can provide that little extra push to get started. So now, let's talk about being kind to yourself. When you're neurodivergent, writing isn't always going to look like the advice you see for neurotypical writers, and that's okay. Your process might be messier, more chaotic, more sporadic, but it's still valid. If you have a day where the writing doesn't happen, that's not a failure, it's part of the process. Instead of striving for consistency, strive instead for persistence. Keep coming back to your writing whenever you can, and don't beat yourself up on the days when it just doesn't happen, because there are going to be days like that. On days when you can't write, maybe you can brainstorm, outline, or even just think about your story while doing other activities. You could even use an AI to generate an image from your story, maybe a scene or a character, so you'll have something to look at when you think about your story. All of this counts as progress. It's not about how often you write, but about staying connected to your project in whatever way works for you. And when those moments of focus and creativity strike, go all in.
Have something you want me to cover in the future? Want to respond or have a question about something I said? Comment below.
Pour your energy into your story and let those bursts of productivity carry you forward. After all, writing with brains like ours isn't about consistency. It's about harnessing the power of your unique mind in ways that work for you. Now that you're learning how to work with your brain's natural tendencies, give yourself permission to fully embrace those methods. And let's move on to creating a writing environment that supports your writing. Clutter can often lead to distraction and overwhelm, and if you're surrounded by clutter, you might struggle to focus on your writing. But here's the thing. Clutter doesn't have to be an enemy if you manage it strategically. Understanding the link between clutter and feeling overwhelmed is important. Clutter can often result from being overwhelmed in the first place, but it also perpetuates that feeling once it sticks around. One approach is to create systems for managing clutter that fit your personality. If traditional organizing systems fail you, don't be afraid to redefine what an organized space looks like for you. It might not be so neat and clean. For example, some people work well in minimalist environments, while others thrive when they have a cozy, more cluttered space that still has some semblance of order. It's about personalizing your space to suit your needs rather than adhering to conventional standards. If you need a more dynamic or visually stimulating space, embrace that. Now, once you've embraced your space and personalized it, create homes for specific items. A clutter-free writing environment doesn't mean everything is pristine, it just means everything has a place and isn't in the way. This reduces the mental load when you're trying to write and minimizes distractions. Have you found that certain sensory inputs like noise or lighting can affect your ability to focus? It's not uncommon, and creating the right sensory environment can also make or break a writing session. For example, some background sounds like white noise or rain or music or even a comfort movie can help keep your mind on track. Or you might find that dim lighting or specific scents like lavender or vanilla creates a calming environment that encourages focus. Experimenting with these sensory elements can help you find the right combination to encourage your brain to settle into the writing mode. Sensory adjustments can play a huge role in improving focus. Some writers swear by brown noise or pink noise to filter out distractions. There are even apps specifically designed for this purpose. The right sound environment can help you drop focus and stay there longer, especially when distractions are everywhere. Now let's move from the external environment to what's happening inside your mind. One common struggle that writers like us face is task initiation. Just getting started can feel like pushing that boulder uphill. It's not laziness, it's the brain's way of dealing with a heavy load of decision-making and action planning, both of which are more challenging for brains like ours. You've likely encountered this when you try to take a shower. You don't hate the shower part, you just hate getting in it, and you hate everything you have to do to get in it. But once you're in it, you're fine. In fact, you hate getting out of it. And writing is the same way. That's why forcing yourself to do a small something on your book works so well, because once you start, you might actually find that you're enjoying it and don't want to stop, just like that shower. Now let's talk about perfectionism, that pesky voice that whispers, "This isn't good enough," before you've even gotten started. Perfectionism can be paralyzing. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the idea that every word has to be perfect, and that mindset is going to stop you before you even start. But remember that progress over perfection is not only a good thing, it's a perfect thing. By the way, I have a free gift for you that's going to supercharge your writing and give you the clarity you need to move forward on your book. You can get it in the description of the video below. Perfectionism is often rooted in fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, or fear of wasting time. That last one is a big one in our society because we feel like we shouldn't waste time. But the truth is, the most important thing about your manuscript, especially a first draft, is just to get the words down. You can always go back later and edit, but you can't edit a blank page. One technique to silence that perfectionist voice is to write a crappy first draft on purpose. Give yourself full permission to write the worst, messiest, most horrible draft possible. The goal isn't perfection here, it's just to get something on the page. Once you've done that, you've got something to work with, and you could go from there. Another way to combat perfectionism is by setting small, manageable, but fun goals for each writing session. For example, instead of sitting down and saying, "I'm going to finish this chapter," just say, "I'm going to finish this scene," and see where that takes you. It might lead you to a whole chapter. It might lead you to several whole chapters. Or it might not, and that's fine too. Breaking your work into smaller and more fun tasks makes the writing process less overwhelming and more enjoyable. And on those tougher days where it feels impossible to write even a single word, try engaging with your story in a different way. Maybe brainstorm ideas for future scenes, or even brainstorm ideas for future books. Build a playlist that captures your story's mood, or sketch out the character profiles. All of these activities count as progress because they keep you connected to your story without the pressure of putting words on the page. And speaking of pressure, let's talk about writing with accountability. Some writers thrive on external pressure. If you're one of them, you can use an accountability partner or writing group to keep you on track. Tell someone your goals for the day and then ask them to check in with you later to see how it went. Knowing that someone else is expecting you to follow through can be the nudge you need to get writing. There are also tons of online communities of neurodivergent writers who understand these unique challenges. Joining a group where you can talk about your struggles, celebrate your wins, and participate in writing challenges can provide invaluable support and motivation. You don't have to go it alone. In fact, the more support you surround yourself with, the easier it becomes to show up for your writing. Now let's shift gears and talk about something that very few people talk about in the writing process, and that's rest. Resting can feel like we're falling behind, but rest is critical. Rest isn't the opposite of productivity. It's the source of it. Your brain needs downtime to recharge, especially if you've been pushing through periods of hyperfocus. Giving yourself permission to take breaks, step away from your writing, and replenish your energy will ultimately help you come back stronger and more creative. When you feel drained or burnt out, step away from the page without guilt. Do something else that recharges you, whether that's going for a walk, watching a favorite TV show, or engaging in a hobby you enjoy. Sometimes stepping away is the most productive thing you can do because it allows your brain to process ideas in the background. And don't forget to take care of yourself in other ways. Taking care of yourself also means addressing the emotional toll that comes with writing. This is something that nobody really talks about. Many writers carry feelings of self-doubt and imposter syndrome. It's easy to feel like you're not good enough or that your writing doesn't measure up to others. But here's the thing, your voice matters. Your perspective, your creativity, and your unique approach to storytelling are valuable. No one else can tell the stories you can in the way that you can tell a story. When self-doubt creeps in, remind yourself that writing is a process, not a product. Each word you write, no matter how imperfect, is part of your growth as a writer. The more you write, the more you learn about yourself and your craft. Trust that with every writing session, you're getting closer to mastering your own creative process. Another helpful strategy is to celebrate your wins, no matter how small. Did you manage to write for 5 minutes today? That's a win. Did you brainstorm an idea for your next scene? That's a win too. Keep a log or a journal of these small victories so that on tougher days you can look back and see just how far you've come, because that's really going to surprise you. And don't be afraid to use technology to your advantage. There are many tools out there designed to help writers stay organized and productive. There are writing apps that help you break down chapters, digital to-do lists, using dictation software, and of course my favorite AI, and my favorite AI is GPT Chat. They can even help you brainstorm ideas or create outlines when your brain feels foggy. At the end of the day, writing with a brain like ours isn't about following someone else's rules. It's about discovering what works best for you and then embracing that. Whether that's writing in bursts of hyperfocus, using body doubling for accountability, giving yourself the space to rest when needed, whatever it is, your process is valid. Embrace the flexibility that comes with understanding your own rhythms and celebrate each step forward, no matter how small. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and your unique perspective as a writer is a gift. Keep going, trust your process, and know that the story you're telling is worth it. Until next time, this is Devin Blake saying write on and claim your free gift at the link below.